Frédéric Dabi, over to you, the General Director from IFOP, a consumer opinion channel. You'll talk to us about what the French have in terms of concerns about electricity supply. I will let you talk. 11 minutes, you said, yes. Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your invitation. I'll let you get started, get seated. So we're just going to talk about the opinion of the public through studies that we've carried out in 2025. It's an important time for this change and shift that we've seen in the cost of electricity. Some elements that we'll look at the current state of mind of the French and the priorities in their eyes, something that we've been looking at over for the past 20 years with stations such as LCI. You've got health, which is the first challenge and has been since 2019. It's struck when you look at this ranking here. This shows the importance of purchasing power in terms of increasing prices and inflation. I can't tell you the shock that we experienced in 2022, 2023. This is something that occurred during the first oil crisis, but it really did upset the French and had an impact on salaries and purchasing power. So you've got this very important point here. We also look at the purchasing power and unemployment. In 2018, unemployment was the main concern for the French. In 2025, it is the 12th concern out of this ranking. So you can see that there's a change in the regard of the French. Even though unemployment is decreasing, the aim is to be in a low-paying job, rather be unemployed. You've got the fight against climate change, only 50%, and protecting the environment. You've got two impacts here. The French seem to have a bit of a laissez-faire approach. The French say that they are already doing quite a lot to combat climate change, and the responsibility of coal plants and others is with the Chinese or the Russians. In terms of this purchasing power, how do the French evaluate the electricity bill? We're not in the same period as in 2022, 2023, when we to go back to the inflation. You see that there's a bit of a distancing. There's only 53%, if you will, the French who consider that inflation is linked to energy. This is a survey that was carried out in 2025. But it's qualitative data going back to 2022, 2023. We link it to energy. 53%, there's no specific category. This is mainly with the higher educated. The middle class and lower class seem to be less concerned by this problem, but there is still some concern, as I mentioned at the beginning. However, when we speak to the French about what they're most concerned about, the cost of their electricity or gas, yes, you see here that whatever their bill, be it electricity or gas, you can see here 83% of French have noticed an increase in their bill, 84% gas and 53% for gas, 31% for electricity. So it's huge, whatever the category be. And within this energy purchasing power, you see that there are some striking data here. Some French have stopped purchasing certain things because of the increase in their bills. It's not just a survey, it's the reality, and it's a form of suffering when out of two people say that they're not going on holiday, 4 out of 10 who have no longer heated their home, so they're living in single homes. 39% have stopped using their cars. 70% of the French, though, don't live in major cities. They use their car on a daily basis, so they need it. Some people have also stopped, given up going for health checkups, and 4 in 10 have given up one of the factors I just mentioned. But this purchasing power priority has not blinded people in terms of the main concern of the environment or energy. Another question, main on priorities, but on the concerns of the French, the question that we asked in April last year by ENGIE, again, you see the purchasing power, you see about the security and safety. It's never been important before, as important as it has been now. You've got narco trafficking, drug dealing. It's a time where the international scene was different. The French are now aware of what's happening in Ukraine. It's had an impact on the energy prices. Of course, what's going on in the Oval Office is also having of major concern to them. Sovereignty of France. This is something that started in COVID. It started at the border, questions of energy, international tensions, and all of this, along with the climate change, are of primary concern, but less so than in the previous question. Energy issues that are a main priority for the French, most French, 1 out in 2 French. There is no difference between generations, between left or right. 4% estimate that they're of no issue at all, despite the purchasing power issues. You can see that it's of some concern, but also that they are marginal to some decisions. Regarding energy, the French support transition are overwhelmingly in favor of the development of renewable energies. When you look at a popularity of these energies, renewable energies, we've got 58%. The youngers in the larger cities, younger members have a good opinion of it. The older populations, perhaps less so. They see it more as an advertisement. And if you look here at the hierarchy of energy sources that are most appreciated by the French, it's quite impressive here. The renewable energy is all at the top, which exceed 78%, be it hydraulic, solar, green gas, or geothermic. We have a nuclear power source which, following the crisis, has become somewhat important, but is still 20 points behind renewable energies. And right at the bottom, you've got fossil fuels, who are somewhat in deficit and do not have a very good image. See, 32% for coal, so you can see a clear hierarchy among the French here. But when you speak to the French about this, they don't want to be categorized in a renewable versus nuclear match, because they would prefer a combination of the two. So you've got this diversification, 56%, and when you look to it in more detail, if there was one single choice, you've got nuclear energy, which is lesser than renewable energy, and on the right, people who are more favorable to renewable energies, there's no opposition here. There's still a battle here between nuclear energy and renewable energy. And here you can see that there's a clear acceleration, a desire for acceleration of renewable energies. There's very little difference between the categories. But people think that the development of these energies is insufficient today and that they would like to see them develop within the next 5 years. And this survey was carried out 5 years ago, and you can see that the target audience seemed to have shrunk. But the renewable energies, I would say, are fairly ambivalent. You can see here on the one side that they have certain benefits that have been outlined here. They will prevent climate change or help to the fight against climate change. Sovereignty, since the healthcare crisis, has become prime importance, and also would be a contribution to the local economy. So the French have this impression that nothing is happening on a national level. The local economy is shrinking and is becoming somewhat of a shelter to the French, and that's something that's showing here. The decrease in electricity cost is something that is mentioned, but you can see that it is not at the top of the ranking here. When I was talking about ambivalence, the perks here are recognized, but there's also this defiance in terms of the different types of energy. Wind energy, for example, is an eyesore. It makes a lot of noise. It can take up farming land, and the cost of this energy, it's got some benefit on their bills, but there's still some question, minor question, but a question in terms of the reliability on these sources of energy, especially wind energy. Manuel Aragon, every year we look at this with the Commission, and these questions are every year more interesting, but there's a feeling of information in terms of the suppliers and getting a fair offering. Because at a time of war, you want to know everything that's going on, and we have a possibility of optimizing things because only 4 out of 10 French are clear on what they would choose. I mean, 41% here is still a lot of people. But they estimate that 41% estimate that the offerings are not clear enough. So if we look at the different categories here, you've got the 18 to 24 years who are most concerned by the issue because they're helping their children or they're helping their parents. And in conclusion, here, proof that there's still work to do. 6 out of 10 French, 57%, estimate that they are not very well informed to choose the right contract. So that's what I can tell you in terms of the combination of the studies that we've carried out, because it's so broad, it focuses on many issues. But what you could say is that we have moved on, we have changed from the tensions of 2022, 2023. Thank you.
Voilà, qui vont certainement.
Thank you very much. I'm sure this will be food for our discussion, especially for our first roundtable. I have here with me, in the order that you are seated, we have Laurence, Poirier-Dietz, General Manager of GRDF. We also have Sylvie Gustave, President, and also Marie-Amandine Stévenin, President of the UFC Choisir, and the EDF Head of Bernard Fontana. First roundtable, and then we'll give the floor to you, Mrs. Stévenin. What is your view on the French people's relationship with energy following the results of this survey? Some ambivalence. Very interesting indeed, and this survey shows us what has been experienced over the last few years is a division, whatever can be envisaged in terms of energy transition, everything that we can think of. This is all summed up in the last 2 years in the fact that people have seen their bills increase, electricity bills so much. It was not mentioned. 38% of people have stopped buying some food because of the increase of the electricity, or stopped eating one meal. 38% is a lot. So this is difficult and makes things difficult to talk about this. So there's an issue with the purchasing power. You need to go beyond this crisis. However, this shows a number of points here and what could be said to consumers. And this is the last figure that is regarding information given to consumers. This is what consumers have mentioned in case of crisis, in case of bill increase. They don't necessarily feel well protected because they don't feel well informed.
Des chiffres du genre 4 sur 10 se trouvent.
4 out of 10 don't find that they have enough information. This is something that consumers have experienced for themselves. They feel trapped with some offers, with some increase, which were not clearly communicated to them. they realized they could not easily change supplier when you compare your own bill with another supplier's bill. It's actually quite complicated. There are taxes. Some don't have taxes or same taxes. Contributions are on one line, etc. So it makes it difficult to compare. So consumers endure the crisis, and they understand that the purchasing power is important and can be damaged during an energy crisis, and they have difficulties regaining their freedom, which is why we need to protect the information to consumers and protect their liberty and freedom to be able to choose offers as they want, offer that would better protect them, rather than having to pay fees, penalties if they change suppliers. What are the conditions for this transformation or transition of the energy transition to make it more acceptable? What would be the main levers? The first one would be information, sharing information, showing consumers that they are not just there to pay their bills. At UFC Que Choisir, we're not fighting for the lowest price. We are fighting for the fairest price, and the fairest price is the one that will be accepted by consumers. We need to hear or agree on what is the fairest price. Yeah, the price that the consumer can pay, that is equivalent to the real cost of productions with a little bit of margin. When we heard earlier on about a price going from 20 to 80 and then to 1,000 euros, it's complicated to explain this to our consumers. This is not on individual bills, no, but it still will have an impact on their own bills indirectly. Of course, we had some shields to prevent that, but still, not everyone were able to benefit from this. And also, it gives way to some form of anxiety. Yes, there is uncertainty. Clients don't know what to expect. So that's why I'm talking about transparency and communications in developing and giving prices to consumers. So, and also helping them understanding what is the benefit of this energy transition, maybe clarifying the objectives. Yes, indeed, they need to see an interest in this transition and not just an economic one. You can't reduce consumers to their own purchasing power. There are other things involved. Consumers don't just make choices with regards to their purse. They're not just all having to choose to eat the cheapest pasta. So they need to be supported. They need to be able to see exactly what it means when they have a wind farm next to them or a wind turbine. They need to understand what it means. So we will see how to engage them in this transition. Thank you. Now, over to you, Sylvie Gustave, known as Duflo. You are local elected official in Guadeloupe and chair of the Energy Development Office. You are also involved in the various energy and environmental issues as the chair of the OFB. What do the results of the IFAB study, just seen from the island territory with its economic specificities, climate, energy, how does this resonate with you? Thank you to Emmanuel Wagon for giving us this opportunity to have this overseas perspective. I'm coming here with my hat as a head of the Biodiversity Office, Board of Directors. We are an island. We are interconnected. Of course, when it comes to energy, purchasing power, expensive living conditions play a high role or heavy weight. In the case of Guadeloupe, 1/3 of the population lives below the threshold of poverty. And despite this, with the electricity tariffs, when you have a median living expenses of 15,000 euros per year, this energy bill is heavy on you and leads to some precarity. Yes, we don't need to use heating as much still. We need to have decent living conditions. We need to be able to use air conditioning. We need to have thermal insulations in our islands, except from Guyana. We are on the first front and are directly impacted with environmental changes, with high heat peaks, with various heat waves. And therefore, when I look at the figures that were presented by IFOP overseas is also part of those data. You are really at the forefront of this climate change and this necessity and need to adapt constantly. This is what you're sharing with us. Yes, of course. Truly, when we look at the data that have been just shared by IFOP, and we see that the environmental issues and climate change issues have been going down a bit, but not so much so, because we can hear that having energy transition is a way to protect the environment, and therefore it's very important. I come from the Guadeloupe. As I'm talking now, this is June 1st. On June 1st, we are suffering an episode of some Saharan dust so intense that we can't even go outside. The cyclone period that just started on June 1st, and on June 2nd we had the first cyclone or hurricane with some more intense phenomena. In the past, it was just 1 week to go from category 1 to 5. Now it only takes 24 hours. In 2024, it only took 12 hours to go from category 1 to 5. We also have other phenomena due to global warming and also due to human activities. We are suffocating, really, because of the consequences of global warming. So energy, ecological transitions, and choosing renewable energy is a daily reality for us. It's about our survival. We don't have a plan B, you know. If things don't go well in Marseille people can always come to Paris. But for us as an island, it's going to be, it might be complicated. Still, yeah. But you don't have a plan B. No, we don't have a plan B island, you know. We have to face those changes. So thank you for sharing this with us, just to kick off with this roundtable. Laurence Poirier-Dietz, how do you interpret this tension between climate ambition and purchasing power? As you've just said, the challenges of climate emergency are such that there are no other options between decarbonation and energy transition. This has become a necessity. Our ambition is that the success of this energy transition would rely on a balance that would be needed between this climate ambition and the social acceptability, meaning that we need to have a just and fair transition that is affordable and pragmatic. I will start with a just and fair and affordable transition. We should not just put this on the shoulders of the consumers only. Yes, decarbonation has a cost, whatever the energy, and controlling this cost is very important. On a daily basis at GRDF, we work at controlling the costs and the tariffs and to have great competitiveness for both gas and electricity because of some gain in our performances. We are positive in that sense that we know that the transition to green gases would be possible as we adapt our infrastructures to have 100% of green gases with some controlled investments, 6 to 10 billion euros by 2050, which makes this transition possible and viable. Still, the transition must also be pragmatic. What does that mean? Of course, it's having a transition that would work, that would function at every moment, at every second, to make sure that the energy system to be resilient. I won't give you recent examples of what happened with our neighbors, but we can see that in order to maintain a balanced energy mix, you need to maintain resilience throughout the year, and that's a complementarity of the networks and the energies. We said it, the minister said it regarding gas is a transition energy. Green gases are future energies. With winter, gas plays an essential role, absolutely essential. There's a lot of difference or discrepancy between the requests and the supply. So we need to maintain a holistic approach and management of all of the facilities, infrastructures, as to minimize the cost, both for the public and for services and for consumers. Yeah, having a pragmatic approach in order to control the costs. And Bernard Fontana, to have a fair price of electricity, what is your view on what has been shared so far and the way that EDF was really at the forefront of all of these energy crises that we've known over the last few years? Yeah, France and Europe have experienced a number of successive crises, and it really affected our clients. I'm not surprised to see the answers to the questions that we've just heard regarding the connection between inflation and energy, and the answers regarding the increase of prices. Now, during those periods, the EDF teams worked with their consumers, clients, to support them, to help them better consume, less consume, and see how they could help them improve their consumption. And I've noticed the loyalty of all of our consumers and clients. A lot of them, most of them, stayed with us, and I want to thank them really for being loyal and staying with EDF. I'm new at EDF. EDF is a brand, a trustworthy brand, a brand that is reassuring, that also has a value of energy sovereignty. I'm also sensitive to the fact that it is something that people consider as important in France. Yeah, following the increases of 21 and 22, now we're back to some more regular prices. Gas, which had gone up to 170 euros in August of 2022, is now down to 35 per megawatt. We can see some progress here, thanks to GNL, LNG. So not quite back to the level of the pre-crisis, but 4 or 5 times still the prices of US. So electricity has come back to some close levels than before crisis, but with some differences across Europe. France is about 60 euros per megawatt for the reference product. In Spain, which at one point was a bit below, Italy is multiplied by 110, Germany 90 euros. So it's a bit better over the last 18 months. And this has now reached a new balance between supply and demand, with an increase of the nuclear and the renewable energy, and consumption is down 8% compared to the period before crisis. So EDF imported a lot of electricity and energy, and France was able to benefit from more decarbonated energy than their European competitors. So, of course, our clients were protected. Now, if the situation went the right way, we don't really see that in the survey still. So that's another topic, even though, yeah, the trust has come back. Yeah, there is more trust now. The trend is more in the structure. And that's a balance with the nuclear and renewable energy. Of course, we still have to reassure our clients regarding the more long-term prospects. Now, in this context, what are the necessary conditions in order to control the evolution of the electricity prices? How do you see the future? Mid-term, long-term, we are seeing some positive elements. Decarbonation of energy is one of them. New applications like AI with data centers. And the regulatory framework plays an important role when we supply more virtuous prices. And that's what is being done with the help of the Commission, with the lower hours, the peak hours and the low hours, and the capacity to give a clear direction, to give all the stakeholders a capacity to continue to invest and look to the future. And because it is the anniversary, I want to commend the work of the Commission, the CRE, and thank them for all their hard work. Okay, now next, how about how can the regulatory mechanisms restore the confidence of the French and their support for the energy transition? Okay, sorry. The question of the energy transition, as I was saying, cannot be separated from the information that will be given and shared with the consumers. We're talking about dynamic prices. This cannot be done without the consumers, without informing our consumers. What's a bit of a pity is that always at the end of the day, the consumer is the one that has to adapt. The consumer has to choose a dynamic or not dynamic offer, but it will depend on the information that is being shared. So we need to rethink the whole system so that at the end of the day, the consumer will enable this regulation. We need to make sure that not everything relies on the shoulders of the consumers. I hear the idea that is behind this. You know, if all consumers start doing their washing at a time when we have too much electricity, we'll be able to regulate. But again, this is putting the responsibility on the consumers. Consumers did not build the electricity market. They're not, you know, aware or informed about electricity storage. So it's a bit like explaining to them that it all relies on them. So I think it's a bit of an oppression. There are consumers who don't have the freedom to do that. They don't have that flexibility, either because they're not aware of this. There are still people who still can't from remotely to trigger the heating system or pump from their mobile phone. There will still be people who will be in a wide zone who will not be able to use their smartphones to do whatever. And there are also people who just want, it might seem surprising, who from 9 to 4, they want to be in the office to work and not have to think of triggering or starting their laundry, you know, washing machine. Okay. Or what about an intelligent meter? Yes, I mean, we can look at what we have, what capacities we have to try to not focus only on AI, which are not yet available. So if it can help decrease a bill, it could be a good thing. Yeah, of course. Now, from a consumer's point of view, it's good to have some form of regulation. Let's remember that in 2022, some of us had to put winter coats on their kids because there was no heating in the classrooms. It's something that a lot of parents, a lot of us grandparents, are not going to forget for a while. It's always putting the fault on the consumers, you know, on the responsibility. They're always the one who have to make the most sacrifices, you know, having to take your kid to school with a winter coat when it's not that cold because there's no heating in the classroom is a sacrifice. So regulation is good, but it has to be shared and valued and explained and not just suffered by some. There are people who are not going to go lower than 17 degrees in their apartments. We don't want to increase discrepancies and differences, you know, because of the energy. Thank you. Sylvie Gustave, known as Duflo, how can we better integrate overseas specificities into pricing policies, aid regulatory mechanisms, such as those managed by the Commission, according to you? I think we need to continue to question the various models, how to use our resources at their best, how to meet the challenge of electrification and mobility, how to make every household an actor of the energy transition is very important in our various overseas territories. We must improve our storage capacities, which will be necessary for the stability of our systems and also meet the urgency of our network capacities. Our non-interconnected territories we want to have more compatibility with the reality of the costs and prices that we have overseas, and we want to have more adapted projects to our realities, mainly in terms of solar, PV, geothermal energies. These energies must emerge. The word that I like that you used was fair, inclusive, and technically robust. So the Commission shares these views with us by sharing the burden of the charges and the costs, by encouraging performant and innovative projects. So the Commission, the CRE, is a key player for us overseas for the energy and ecological transition. Thank you very much. Laurence Poirier-Dietz, you are strongly committed to the development of green gases. We've talked about the pragmatic approach. What about these biogases, as we call them, which are actually more expensive than fossil gases? How do you see things evolved so that it will remain equitable both for and affordable for consumers? Will these prices decrease in the future, would you say? Yes, at GRDF, we believe in the development of green gases with the potential of 60 terawatt by 2030 and 35. Why do we believe in this? In France, we have a sector that started for the last 10 years now, thanks to the Commission, which I really want to thank once again for the work that was conducted and the way that we were able to develop this regulatory framework. As I was saying, we are confident. We have a French sector which is developing. We also have important players, strong actors, agriculture. We have leading companies for waste management, water management. We also have a capacity to build up with new technologies. So we believe in the green gases, and we are in a capacity to conduct this change, this evolution. We have some very dynamic regions like the Hauts-de-France, Brittany, or the east of France. So there is a cost for biomethane, which is higher at the moment than fossil gases. It should be compared with what is comparable, the low-carbon energies, and compare also with electricity, renewable energies. All in all, the goal is to decrease the cost of biomethane because there will be a scaling up of the facilities with larger facilities that will come. Also, we believe, and that's another important aspect in this roadmap, the roadmap by 2050 is to have more energy sobriety and more efficiency in order to consume less and consume better and to consume green energy. The regulator, the Commission, plays an important role in this. Regulation is highly important to remain, to keep a long-term objective and to keep a framework that would be organized and visible for all of the sector. Also with our projects, all the prospects, the activities that we're conducting with our teams. So all in all, this is a way of preparing the future with some important works in order to benefit consumers so that they could start benefiting from the green gases. We need to also educate them and therefore decrease the cost of these energies to ensure the transition. We mentioned a panel of different offers. You have a lot of those offers at EDF, regulatory tariffs, green hours, etc. Do you have enough of these offers? Do you have enough varieties of offers to meet the needs of consumers? How do you support them? How do you inform them to help them choose the best offer possible? Indeed, you have to be fully aware of the needs. At EDF, we have more than 5,000 advisors in France, regularly discussing with individuals more than 350,000 calls per week. That gives you an idea of the amount of exchanges, discussions we have with our consumers. Yes, EDF is developing many offers in order to meet all those needs. There is a challenge of simplification. We need to find the right survey between simplicity and human cost of offers as they are presented. However, not a surprise, after the survey we just heard, most consumers want to reduce their bills. This is what the GRDE is offering over 2 years with more visibility over time. Yes, we have consumers, clients who want to have more adapted offers, adapted to their own working hours or private life hours, other because they are charging their electric vehicles. Some have different habits. It's very varied. We have many offers. We are project managers. We are in contact with SMEs, large companies, large groups. So all of them have a challenge of decarbonation and competitiveness. Since February, the TPE can access the TRVE without any power limitations. As part of our new commercial policy, we are increasing the duration of our contracts from 3 to 5 years. And I think this will help greatly to give more visibility that people are expecting. To give you some figures, since 2024, more than 12,000 companies have signed contracts for a duration of 4 to 5 years for 2022 or 14 terawatt and some more for 2030. We also have, of course, call for tenders, competitions, but that's a rule of competition. For the largest industrial companies, we also have partnership offers to have more stability and competitivity. And there are many possibilities with our offers, various prices, modalities, risks, management, etc. And I think it works. On May 15th, we signed a 10 years contract with a larger consumer of electricity in France. And I'm expecting in the coming weeks or months to have other such contracts signed. So very wide panels. Of course, this will also have an impact on the final bills of consumers and individuals. We mentioned sobriety, which was not really chosen by and suffered by the consumers. How would you support them? How do you offer your help to customers to control their consumption better? Yeah, the crisis has an impact, of course, on the bills. I had to adjust and optimize my consumption. Since 2022, we've been working on sobriety. Could give you some examples. We have some tools, online tools, to monitor your consumption. Those who can connect, of course, with their smartphones, from 70 million to 210 million of connection per year. So what we're seeing is that a customer that connects 2 to 3 times a month, that is more attentive to their consumption, manages to reduce the consumption by 10%. So that's quite significant. With some routines that we can put in place, which is why we have a decrease of 8% of the consumption because of the new habits, the new routines that have become more common. So what now we need to do is to keep this over time, to continue to develop a smart steering system that will be easy to implement in the use of electronic devices and heating. It could also be professional, and this would give more room to accelerate electrification and to develop other activities. Thank you. Last roundtable. Okay, we can see that the main concern is purchasing power for French consumers, reducing their electricity, gas bills. What about the future in this context? How would you help the acceptability? We saw with the IFOP survey that if French people are very favorable to renewable energy, unless if it's not in their garden, in their backyards, in Guadeloupe and other overseas territories, you have natural resources. You have local resources. How do you facilitate this? What are the levers that have been identified to accelerate the transition in a fair and inclusive manner that is more anchored locally to have more acceptability?
To achieve this, we have set ourselves an objective. In Guadeloupe, renewable energies represent 35% of the market, and with the energy transition and the, I would say, the supplies of combustibles that have replaced coal, by 2030 we should probably be 100% renewable. So for us, it's very important. And what we've also noticed in Guadeloupe is the public's will, their will to go towards this energy transition. We've never had more public meetings on hydrogen. That may seem quite something to you, but we dream of hydrogen-fueled planes, because today the cost of travel between Pointe-à-Pitre and Paris is just not sustainable. I don't know if hydrogen will improve the cost of transport, but well, in Guadeloupe we are dreaming of hydrogen transport and energy costs that could decrease transport costs and provide us with this continuity that we can have together with France. So we do have a lot of resources: solar, photovoltaic, geothermal. And Emmanuel Vargon came to co-preside a COMEX on waste, with the aim that these waste could become some of the combustibles that we use. It's very important that we could get an idea of this commission in terms of the waste and the energy pilot schemes that we have in Guadeloupe. We don't have the choice, as I've already mentioned. We are a country that is keen to go towards renewable energy. We just need help to purchase solar power panels, other equipment to allow us to use renewable energy in our country, because the average income is far inferior, but the cost of living is 16% higher than in France, 14% in Martinique, 9% in La Réunion, and we have up to 42% higher costs on our food shop. So it's very important. Thank you very much. Bernard Fontana, how does the EDF assist overseas territories with their energy transition using their own resources so that they can transition in a respectable manner? Yes, it's a bit of a forewarning for energy transition with an increase in renewable energies. And also they are often smaller, isolated systems. We have to ensure safety and security of the electricity system. And to do this, EDF uses pioneering technologies that require significant investment, either on a human or financial side, and also a dialogue with local authorities and the population to find the correct dosage of what they need. To do this, we can look at our production, our tariffs of sales. Funding electrical companies is done through the states, and we have to look at the allocations that they are granted. The island has an exceptional biodiversity, and I've been told that 80% of France's biodiversity is located in their overseas territories. So given the environmental challenges that you have, I would confirm in 2024, it was a 5% mix of renewable energies, 92% in La Réunion, with a progressive conversion from fuel plants to renewable fuels. So EDF is contributing to this initiative on a daily basis. We're working on a provisional report, 5-year term, which will allow us to structure our action. And these things will soon be available in La Réunion, in Guadeloupe, in the overseas territories. Thank you. So we're going to talk about acceptability, the development of renewable energy infrastructure, renewables, methane plants. Methane plants can cause some local opposition. How do you see that you can encourage the acceptability of this gas? Well, acceptability of methane plants is something that you have to work towards. It's something that you work towards with local elected officials who want to value their renewables, their waste, and also conserve their energies. It's something that you put together with locals who are just learning more about this project. They need to understand what's going to happen, how it's going to work, what will be the downsides, what's going to happen, what you're going to do with this biogas, with this biomethane. You have to work with farmers. There are a lot of tools now. I think we've progressed on the issue. There are a lot of visits that take place to current methane plants. There are other discussions that take place that allow us to progress towards this accessibility. And what we've seen is that when people start to understand all the impacts on local employment, on the circular economy, on waste treatment, on this capacity of powering their transport system for school pickups or heating their pools, then you see that there's a better acceptability, even though, as we've said, and as you've seen in the study, people are always very happy, but not always. It's maybe a very French thing, but we are progressing and we are able to do things. And once things have been installed and put into place, the benefits show and things go extremely well. It's something that's happened a number of times where before putting in a methane plant into operation, people were looking forward to it. And then a month later, people were still saying, oh, well, we'll see what happens when it's put into production or into use. Well, it's already in use and people hadn't noticed. So there's a whole host of problems that are imagined but actually don't take place. So consulting with the public, talking with the public, transparency, and then there's also associations that have been put in place so they could see the economic benefits of these projects. How do you see the consumer in this? Well, I think this is something that we've talked about. We're a federation. There's 130 local associations distributed across France and the and the overseas territories, but not in Guadeloupe, I'm sorry. But our local associations take part in the consultations that take place in terms of the projects that may be implemented, and also contribute with other associations on a national level of providing information. So you've got this consultation and information that will allow us to work together. And I think the Commission has a role to play here because they are a technical authority, a moral authority that need to position themselves in terms of the decisions that will impact the consumer. Yes, thank you very much. Just one last thing, Sylvie. You shared with me in preparation for this roundtable that you were concerned, that you felt concern amongst the young around you. Is there maybe a message that you would like to share to give them hope? Yes. I am a conference at the University of the Antilles, and often I speak with my students about their perception of the energy transition, and often they say, well, we want to work, but we want it to work, but this work has to have meaning. We want to be sure that the work that we're going to do is going to ensure a future for our planet, because many of them think that today, well, that in a few years' time, the planet will be uninhabitable. So that's up to us, nature experts, scientists, to give them hope, give them faith, and outline what we need to do. Because ultimately, we have no other choice than adopting these ecological energy transitions, because it's the future of our planet that we are guaranteeing. And as the president of the Office of French Biodiversity, I would like to pass on this message, because I know that we're not very appreciated by certainly the agricultural environment, but all these transitions are essential. And I just remind you, there is no planet plan B. Yes, that's the downside. Thank you. Thank you very much to all four of you. Thank you for your experience and your sharing. Thank you.